So it's one thing for people of our generations to be doing something so internal, or to be taking an inner look. It's a different thing for somebody of your age to be doing it. And what sort of thoughts did you have going into it, and then how did that affect you in coming out of Vipassana once you had learned what you learned and gone through it all?
So I was just based on Dad's practice and him being already sort of well versed in Buddhism, spirituality. Whenever I had any sort of problems that I wanted to discuss about how I'm feeling, about my life, his answers would be based out of those things. So naturally, my interest towards this sort of style of life developed at a pretty young age. He had even when I would feel really, really anxious at times throughout university, and dealt with a lot of intense negative emotions, I guess, that sort of you feel from that transition to the time that you're 17, 18, entering adulthood. Things start to seem really, really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I started to feel those emotions. But what he taught me was about observing your sensation objectively and detaching from the mental content. So I didn't really understand what that meant when he initially told me, but it was a year or two of just playing around with that idea.
Okay.
And then I eventually got good at and figured out that if there's an emotion inside of me that I'm avoiding, if I really want to get rid of it, and if it's an unpleasant emotion, I have to let it take its toll. And so I would practice just being by myself and just sitting with that feeling, turning everything off.
So
and
in a meditative way, not
I guess, yeah, but I wasn't
when you're driving,
yeah,
not when you're...
it could be when I was driving too. You know what I mean? I initially it was during drives and during walks and runs and whatnot. And at times I would just shut everything out, and just sit down and just let it take over completely.
Yeah.
And then there was this distinct 3 or 4 times initially that I was okay, I would sit with it for long enough, then I would watch it just all of a sudden just dissipate.
Yeah.
After I'm not giving it any sort of mental content.
Just observing the feeling, or the feeling really in the body, and then and knowing it'll pass, because this too shall pass, right?
And I think what eventually reinforces that is that once this thing becomes strong enough, then you kind of start getting in touch with yourself, the inner stillness, and that starts kind of generating a calm, where you know that you're now comfortable. And one thing which fed that part, I think he will probably come to that, and he can vouch that, is his sports, his running. Because there's one way, this is, observing your emotion sensations is one way of doing it. That, the final goal is that if you just keep observing that, then you get to that center, right? And there's another way of doing it is that, even if you don't do all that stuff, and if you do some intense physical activity, then your thought process already kind of fizzles out, and then you can get in touch with yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think his experiments with his running and sports have a lot to do with getting in touch with himself.
So I started off just going on really, really long runs, and
But it's meditative in a lot of ways, right? You zone out often.
Yeah, exactly. Because initially when I'm not tired yet, there is mental content, there is chatter going on, everything. But after a certain point of exhaustion, I literally just have to focus on the next step at a time, and then my awareness shifts from that mental content to what my running form is. Then I become aware of the discomforts that are in my body.
Right.
And then I start playing around with, there's my ankle's hurting or my knee's hurting, so I need to adjust how I'm landing this way.
Yeah.
Or if my chest is up, I'm not getting oxygen in. So that was very meditative in itself to get to that sort of state where I'm not feeling any discomfort while I'm running.
Right.
And also that was another thing, dissociating from the discomfort while I was going on runs, because similar to the meditations, it would always come in waves as well.
Yeah.
Like when I start running, I would go, that discomfort's building up, I'm hitting that initial wall, but after that it would just like go away. I get in a zone and I'm going, and then see how long that lasts, and then I would hit another wall, and then it will go away again. You know what I mean? So I started practicing with that, but that was only part of the solution. Like meditation, I think it's independent of you having to go out and do something. This is something that you can do at all times, right?
Yeah.
So
Anywhere.
anywhere, at any time. Yeah, and it's and to an extent, with the running, you would also get like almost like a positive feeling. But
Runner's high.
Runner's high. Yeah, whereas with meditation, it's not a positive or a negative. It's that like centered feeling.
Right.
Like I understood what that meant,
Right.
but like
You don't get the endorphins the way you do.
exactly,
when you
yeah,
run.
because and that's another that shift that happened. Like I thought the point of meditation was that when you are feeling negative or when you're feeling emotions or sensations that are undesirable, you meditate, they go away, and then you feel positive.
Right.
And that's all okay. Like running already does that for me. Right, but it's not that positivity. It's that like that centered, just clear sort of state, right?
Yeah.
That you're just like okay with everything that's going on. You're just present, which that was like a distinction. I hadn't experienced that state before to the level that I did by like day 8 or 9.
So that is what propelled you then to try
To go?
something like this, yeah. Or
And I just had an open mind. This seemed like a cool experiment to do, because I'm already like, obviously there's validity to it,
Sure.
and I just hadn't taken the time myself to actually like incorporate this practice into my life. So I was like, this is a time that I can go see it for what it is, and
Open to learning.
and I already like like a couple hours, or maybe I'll have a day to myself where I don't like communicate with anyone. I'll just go for a walk, or like a very low stimulus sort of day. So I was like, okay, I'm
non-social media days.
non-social media days,
Which
so
bombards us at this point. these days,
which was overwhelming when I came back.
Yeah.
But so that's why I was open to doing this. But yeah, it was more difficult than I expected it to be, but also like really, really rewarding by the end as well.
And you're with your running, you were talking about how you would, be uncomfortable to a point, and then it would taper off, right? So it was the same as what we were talking about before, especially in the beginning, the first few days of doing Vipassana, and you had to sit there, and then it's like you had to build up, right? Because you're always like, oh, my knee is aching, I have to move my leg. Or, we were talking about how many pillows you would bring in and arrange them in all these crazy ways to see if that would make you comfortable. So it's the same thing. It was getting over, your leg is going to ache for that 3 minutes or however long it was. And then you didn't move, and it went away. It was just noticing the ache, observing the ache, and then letting that pass because it would.
Yeah, that's another big draw for me as well, because towards 4th day, when I had settled into a comfortable position where I could be still, now I think 4th or 5th day now becomes the mandate that now you have to be absolutely
then
still.
1 hour for sure.
Because the first 3 days you can move.
Yeah, they know you're building.
For the rest of the days you still can, but the mandate is you try to be as still as possible.
Right.
So you take upon yourself that you are going to comply, right? So then you're sitting straight, and then I was in a habit of sitting for half an hour. Hour was a stretch, and then you had to do it for 3-4 times a day. So then lower and upper back, very specific points, 2 points here and 2 points at the upper back, very shooting pains.
Oh wow. The whole time, or just
the whole,
would come and go?
it start about half an hour, and then it'll persist. And then your whole attention is basically towards those points. So, but you're trying to do the body scan, but the pain is basically taking you again and again towards that. So then you had this session with the instructor, where I told them, I had almost started thinking that maybe I should request a chair
Right.
because this is becoming
The
uncomfortable.
wall.
So yes, and then you associate all kinds of words and
Yes.
stories. I'm getting my muscles are
Right.
getting spasm,
Yeah.
I need stretching all. So I tell him that about the pain of the upper and lower back, very sharp shooting pain. It's almost going into a spasm and blah blah blah. And he says, if you don't have any medical condition, I would suggest that you use this pain for meditation. I said, like, that's an interesting part. And and he says two things. One is that if you're really settling, your mind is settling, the unconscious sankharas,
Yeah.
the impressions, are surfacing. And when they surface, they can manifest themselves in the
Different
form
ways.
of physical pains.
Yes.
I like that idea. And the second part is that when he says you start feeling those shooting pains, take your attention directly towards those spots. Like if it is the
Right.
top two, then take your attention there, and then regardless of where you are in your scanning,
Yeah.
you get to those, and then you start moving your attention radially outwards from those
Right.
spots,
Right.
and then you will feel the pain diminishing
Right.
as you move.
Wider and wider.
Yeah, and then just think of it as a sensation. Don't name it as a pain or something. So between these 3-4 instructions,
Right.
what happened? I intensely applied this, and in whatever way, I don't know whether my mind programmed itself not to feel it or whatever, it became very manageable. And for the first 3 or 4 days, I had a very strong feeling that my body has become stiff and need to stretch after the session. And I would go out and everybody's doing that, and I'll do the same as well. Doing
Yeah.
shoulder stretches, arm stretches, lying down and stuff. 4th day when I started practicing that, I literally jumped from the cushion because I had simply discarded the idea of pain.
Right.
And then I walked around. I did not do any stretching whatsoever after that day.
Right.
And I was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty dramatic change.
It's
Almost,
almost,
trying to figure out like how mind multiplies a little problem into a huge thing. And then also I heard about the same
Where we
thing.
put our focus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a guy that we met the first day, and then I could relate to what he had said as well. He said he used to do very intense sports to the extent that he hurt his spine, and he, to the extent that he could not even get up from the chair. His spine was that bad. It was paining all the time. So then from his physiotherapist, he came to know about this new concept in physiotherapy called neuroplasticity, which he said meant that like if you have any sensation, the mind, if it is negative, mind tends to multiply that because it reads that and then it calls it out something, and then if it is negative, then it gets multiplied. So he said that the physiotherapist said that so this is what the mind is doing. The pain is not actually as much as you feel it. So if you just focus your attention at the most painful of your points in the spine, and it'll start healing itself. And as desperate as he was, he took it to heart and started practicing.
Right.
And this guy was walking now and doing his normal chores.
Yeah.
And he said this is practically how he had got up. Nothing else would work.
it's almost
It's
like
incredible, right?
Yes,
the body
yes,
and the mind, and
it's
if we
almost,
learn about it, it's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's an incredible thing.
it's like it diminishes the reactive nature of the mind, right?
Yes, yeah.
So it's sensations are there, but our minds are so used to just like immediately that we feel pain, it's like, oh, you adjust to it, right?
Yeah.
But whereas now you get to a state where it's like, okay, I feel pain, but it's your choice
How
how you want to react
How
to
you
it,
address
right?
that pain.
So and then that also brings in the awareness of, okay, is this like a pain that I need to be reacting to?
Right.
Or is this a pain that I can bear, and let's try to watch it and let's see if it goes away,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool.
when you incorporated the practice of meditation or spirituality, how did your regular day-to-day quality of life change? Like in your work life, in your relationships, and everything. Like why? That's like the big aspect for me, right? Like I've incorporated this into my life to whatever extent, and everything has gotten better, right? And in every domain, but you know, let's go into the specifics in regards to that. What do you think is like where?
So for me, I think it's really again, you know, when you're in a situation at work or wherever, in the mall or I don't know, wherever you are, and something happens, say somebody's losing their patience or is being a bit snappy or, you know, all of the negative things, that can really feed normally as in yourself, right? Like you can react to that sort of a situation and be snappy back or get angry or be miserable in your own sense, like a
in your
a
condition.
snowball, like a snowball, right? Like a snowball effect.
It just builds momentum.
Right, and you can keep that going, or you can stop. And again, you have no idea what they've been through that day or whatever's happened. You can just stop and notice how you are wanting to react in that moment, and then just let it pass, and then carry on with your day. You know, so you just learn a different way instead of just being in that moment or reacting in that moment. Learning that you can observe how you think you should, or you normally would have reacted, and then just let it dissipate, like the sensations, everything else. Just let it dissipate, and then carry on with your day in that moment in a calm, you know, happy, normal way, right? In a way that's not aggressive or. I think that's super beneficial. I think that's a great tool to learn through that.
So have aspects of your life, like are there any aspects that have become more pleasurable as well as a result of incorporating this practice?
Did you want to go on that?
Yeah, I've seen some very distinct changes. There are several aspects of your conditioned self. For example, you know, I'm in a consulting field, engineering, you know, always problems, challenges that we have to deal with, and then you know, team interactions where you're supposed to, you know, express yourself and come up with solutions and sometimes lead as well. And if you're operating out of your conditioned self, you know, it carries its own conditions of fear or anxiety or whatever, right? And you're not really aware, you can't really catch yourself being you know, taken by those conditioned reactions. But with deepening of your awareness and your you know, better understanding of how your ego operates, in any situation, you become more aware of your own reactions. And when you are more aware of your reactions, it becomes very easy to drop them. And then suddenly you start finding that you know, most of your fears were basically self-made. There was nothing scary about the situation or the people. That was all imaginary. And then you start settling into situations which used to be very scary about it. The greatest aspect of that is that now suddenly makes available a lot more intelligence with you in all conditions. And the one most distinct aspect that I've seen improved is communication. Because, and that's a part of Sheel as well, because, you know, when you practice Sheel and you start understanding the vanity of ego, and you're willing to let go and, you know, stop trying to build a big opinion of yourself, you're very comfortable with yourself and you're not really afraid of making a fool of yourself. So that comfort itself generates a high level of you know, spontaneity, intelligence, and it really opens up the communication. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen in myself.
And you're not wasting energy on the
absolutely
reaction.
On reaction and holding unnecessary opinions and, you know, positions, judgments and all that rest of it. You learn to let it go, and you learn to let it go not because you're forcing it on yourself, because you start seeing the benefit of it. It is because we are holding on to so many things that what's really in there is not available.
Right.
Once you start seeing the benefit of it, it's kind of self-reinforcing.
Yeah.
It almost makes you more adaptable to any environment or situation that you go into, right?
Absolutely.
It's, certain things before I incorporated spirituality, meditation into my life, there were certain things that I would just want to avoid at all costs and certain things that I would want to do at all costs. But now it's more of like a neutral thing. Even if I have to go into a situation that I didn't used to be fond of, or like whether it's a social situation, whether it's anything, I'm just okay. Let's go there. Let's see what happens, and I have no premature sort of ideas formulated about how this thing is going to turn out. Whereas before, I would go into these situations and I would almost have my mind made up that this is going to turn out the way it's going to turn out, right? But now you're present and you're almost reacting to the situation as it's unfolding, and you're allowing it to unfold where it wants to go, as opposed to you putting your own sort of
Spin on it.
You're
imposing your own wish on
it. Exactly.
Or even the negative thinking again attracts that negativity could make that happen, right?
Yes,
So the trajectory changes from what it could have been, and that's important too. So.
And then even in social.
It's so great that you're so young and that you get to apply this now.
Exactly. Just the quality of my social interactions have gotten better, and not even in the sense that they're like more exciting or whatever, but it's I'm able to meet people where they're at, and when I'm at ease, I find the whole environment around me eventually catches that vibe as well. Whereas it's the opposite when I'm not at ease, and I'm reacting out of that place of entropy inside of me, right? Everyone else is gonna feed off that as well.
Absolutely.
I'm observing that wherever I go now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a good discussion.
Yeah.
Anything nice you can say to conclude?
To conclude,
Yeah.
what did we not talk about that should be touched on still?
So you can
Just,
summarize.
you
You can also say about hey folks, don't think that going to Vipassana is just you drop their life or anything.
So essentially, it's along the lines of this isn't something, if you incorporate it into your life, that you have to get rid of all your pleasures and all your vices, I guess you could say.
I think if that's the fear in the youngsters, that they'll become somewhat of a stoic, that they'll stop feeling everything, they'll get above everything, that the worldly pleasures now no longer matter to them. It seems like a hard thing to leave, because life seems so beautiful at this age, right? But what I'll say is that it's actually on the contrary, because in a normal pursuit of pleasures, even in the sensual pleasures, when we're trying to indulge in our senses, there's always this hidden fear of, when we are in the midst of a great moment, a pleasurable moment, that it'll go away. So that fear somehow holds us back to fully give ourselves to the moment. Whereas if you, through this process, you start understanding the transitory nature of everything, and plus you get so much in touch with your sensibilities that your level of enjoyment of even the simple sensual pleasures increases manifold. I have
again,
seen,
but through observation and through being in that moment.
In that moment,
present,
I have an example in my family. My dad was like that. He was a poet, and my mom tells me he passed away when I was little. I was only 12, so there were several aspects of his personality that I didn't know about. But my mom tells me that when it was spring and everything was, the buds were coming out and he's going for a walk, he used to get so excited looking at a bud that he'll start a cry of joy will come out of him,
Right.
and he has such strong looking at a fruit, like picking
Yeah.
fruit from a tree or from
Like a child, right?
Yeah,
It almost,
In that
like,
moment
yeah,
of discovery, or like
yeah,
just
yeah.
enjoying it again.
every little, like he used to teach us how to polish our shoes,
Mhm.
and there was so much love and joy in that little
Simple tasks,
mundane act as
Yeah.
well. So every little thing that he used to do, he used to do it with so much love and joy. So which only means that if you have your sensibilities to that level,
Yeah.
and he was a spiritual person as well, then you don't need much to enjoy. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is already there.
Yeah. Thing to check out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's a great, I mean, it's a great experience either way. Whether you're ready for it at this moment or not is the question, right? Everybody
Yeah.
has,
Yes.
like we were saying before, not everybody's ready at this very moment, but it's a great tool to put in your toolbox, if nothing else.
Yes. Yeah.
To learn how to begin to observe through your own body,
That's right.
and then put that out into the world as you
Yeah,
go out
yeah.
day to day.
One thing that we can all easily vouch for is that there's nothing to be scared of.
Yeah.
If you're
Fear,
scared,
yeah.
we can definitely tell you there's nothing to be
Yeah.
scared of. It's not going
No.
to take anything away from you. If anything, it might add. So
Yeah,
at least
absolutely.
that as much as that, we can vouch for that.
Yeah. And the one thing for like the younger generations, probably like the biggest thing is like the boredom aspect of it that you would think initially, right? That, oh, why would I do this? This is so boring. But essentially, if you go through this for the 10 days, or even incorporate it for like a certain period of time in your day-to-day life, it's almost like a detox for your senses. So your capacity to experience sensations in a general sense increases if you give your senses a break.
Oh,
And that is like the
that's well said.
fundamental
Yes,
sort of
yeah.
philosophy of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can do it for 10 days,
Yeah.
you come back into the world seems new again.
Yeah.
Just
Right?
speaking of
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
how did you guys feel on that last day when you came out of it and everybody was talking again and it was loud? And
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
lot, right?
Yeah, no, it was the lowest point of the
Yeah.
course. If there was one thing in the course that I'll change, it'll be that.
I had pretty good conversations with people.
Yeah, it was
I
nice to
enjoyed it,
nice to find out other people's
Yeah.
experiences and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
But it
then-
was it was not overwhelming, but it
Yeah.
was a lot, you know, it was
Yeah.
loud and it
It
was
was,
like,
yeah.
why is
Yeah.
it so
Yeah.
loud all of a
Yeah.
sudden?
Yeah.
And even in the kitchen or in the dining hall, because there's no
Yeah.
buffers of noise, there's nothing to absorb the sound. That was the first thing I
Definitely,
noticed
yeah.
that first day we got to
Yeah.
talking, and I was like, it is so loud.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Actually,
It
I need to
resonated.
qualify that. I mean, there was some part of it which I really enjoyed because you definitely want to discuss and want to resonate with your fellow
Peers,
travelers,
yeah,
peers, what this thing was about, and in that regard, we had really good conversations. But then also the loudness part of some of youngsters, or maybe you can say you wouldn't say youngsters, all ages. That part kind of starts feeling that have we really gone through such a spiritual experience
Yeah.
that you can just dive back into your old self so quickly, like what
Yeah.
did you
Right,
get out of
true.
these 9 days? Yeah, so a few hours than 1 full day. Yeah.
But they also do want to give us a buffer day so that we do go back out in the world
Yeah.
and
Because it's inevitable, right?
Yeah, because
That's
that
what's
we're
gonna
gonna face those situations anyways.
Maybe,
Whereas
yeah.
may as well
maybe,
face them now
Yeah.
where everyone's on the same sort of wavelength and understands the mental state that you're in,
Yeah,
as opposed to going into the world and that there's people just coming at you with all different types of energies, and then you're
True.
like really, really overwhelmed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, it's like you have to break into that eventually. It's like a preparation to take you back into the world.
yeah.